Hey, LA fans, it's me, Mr. Wells, again. Today we're going to be reading a story called The Drummer Boy of Shiloh by Ray Bradbury. Interesting to me because Ray Bradbury is a famous science fiction author, but this is not science fiction. It's not set in the future, it's set in the past. We've been talking about literature from the Civil War, and we've read stuff by Frederick Douglass. We read a biography about Harriet Tubman. Slaves. Slavery, huge issue in the Civil War. But this story we're reading takes a little different perspective, and it is talking about the actual fighting of the war itself. Now, you're going to want your notes or move toward freedom notes. We're going to keep on filling those out as we go along in the story today. There will also be questions over this story, so be on the lookout for that. For my all remote students, those will be posted with this video. For those of you who are just watching this, because you've been absent from one of my in-person classes or quarantine, then that it'll be posted as a separate assignment. All right. Make sure you are watching the videos though, because it is a part of your participation grade, active engagement points that way. All right. So The Drummer Boy of Shiloh is what's called historical fiction. Historical fiction. In your notes, you're going to make the notation. I think there's a fill in the blank there. I don't have it right in front of me, but historical fiction is a fictional story that takes place in real history. Okay, it takes place during the time period of actual events. So fiction. Some of you say fiction means fake. Fiction is a made-up story, but in this case, it's not just that. Fiction is it's a made-up story. The main character is made up. Many of the characters might be made up, but it takes place within historical events. If you've ever seen the movie Forrest Gump, that is an extreme example of historical fiction because Forrest Gump is a made-up character, but in the movie, he gets to meet President Johnson, and he gets to meet Elvis, and he gets involved with all of these things that really happened in history. And so that would be an example of historical fiction. Now we're going to be talking about the Civil War. If you've ever been interested in joining the military, you might know that you had to be 18 to be in the military, but that wasn't always the case. During the Civil War, there were boys as young as 10 who were in the military. Usually they were in there as a drummer boy. The drummer boy in this story is 14 years old, so basically about your age. And he is in the war as a drummer boy. And we'll talk about a little bit later about why, what's the purpose of him being a drummer boy. But let's read it together. You can follow along in the story. It should be attached with this video. In the April night, more than once, blossoms fell from the orchard trees and lit with rustling taps on the drum skin. At midnight, a peach stone left miraculously on a branch through winter, flicked by a bird, fell swift and unseen, struck once like panic, which jerked the boy upright. In silence, he listened to his own heart ruffle away, at last gone from his ears and back in his chest again. After that, he turned the drum on its side, where its great lunar face peered to him whenever he opened his eyes. His face, alert or at rest, was solemn. It was indeed a solemn time and a solemn night for a boy just turned 14 in the peach field near the Owl Creek, not far from the church at Shiloh. So this is what's called the setting of the story. Okay, the setting of the story, and you'll write this in your notes. We talked about this in the last unit. A setting is a time or a place that the story takes place. In this case, we're talking Civil War, April 1862, and that's the setting. Okay, and as far as the time, as far as the place goes, he says peach field near Owl Creek, not far from the church at Shiloh. And in your background, you find out This is where the Battle of Shiloh took place during the Civil War. More than 23,000 people died during that battle, and it made it, at that time anyway, the bloodiest battle in American history. 31, 32, 33, unable to see, he stopped counting. Beyond the 33 familiar shadows, 40,000 men, exhausted by nervous expectation, unable to sleep for romantic dreams of battles yet unfought, lay crazily askew in their uniforms. A mile farther on, another army was strewn helter-skelter, turning slow, basting themselves with the thought of what they would do when the time came. A leap, a yell, a blind plunge, their strategy, raw youth, their protection and benediction. Now and again, the boy heard a vast wind come up that gently stirred the air, but he knew what it was. The army here, the army there, whispering to itself in the dark. Some men talking to others, others murmuring to themselves, and all so quiet it was like a natural element arisen from south or north with the motion of the earth toward dawn. What the men whispered, the boy could only guess, and he guessed that it was me. I'm the one. I'm the one. All the rest won't die. I'll live through it. I'll go home. The band will play, and I'll be there to hear it. Yes, thought the boy, that's all very well for them. They can give as good as they get. For with the careless bones of the young men harvested by night and bindled around campfires were the similarly strewn steel bones of their rifles with bayonets fixed like eternal lighting lost in the orchard grass. Me, thought the boy, I got only a drum, 2 sticks to beat it, and no shield. Okay, so in this part of the story, the author is setting the mood for the story. And the mood, in your notes you'll write, the mood is a feeling or atmosphere of a story. And the mood can be a lot of different things. It could be a mood of fear. It could be a mood of humor. It could be a mood of sadness. In this case, I think we have a mood of sadness, fear, uncertainty. The boy's scared. The boy's scared because, he knows that there are people going to be dying in battle. And he knows that these men are armed, they have guns, they have shields to protect them. And he has just a drum. He's just a drummer boy. And he's afraid of dying. And we'll find out later, not only is he afraid, he's sitting there in the middle of the night crying. Because he's upset. So the mood is a very somber mood. It's a very sad, melancholy mood. There wasn't a man boy on this ground tonight did not have a shield he cast, riveted, or carved himself on his way to his first attack, compounded of remote but nonetheless firm and fiery family devotion, flag-blown patriotism, and cocksure immortality, strengthened by the touchstone of very real gunpowder, ramrod, minie ball, and flint. But without these last, the boy felt his family move yet farther off, away in the dark, as if one of those great prairie-burning trains had chanted them away, never to return, leaving him with this drum, which is worse than a toy in a game to be played tomorrow or someday much too soon. The boy turned on his side. A moth brushed his face, but it was Peach Blossom. A peach blossom flicked him, but it was a moth. Nothing stayed put, nothing had a name, nothing was as it once was. If he lay very still, when the dawn came up and the soldiers put on their bravery with their caps, perhaps they might go away, the war with them, and not notice him lying small here, no more than a toy himself. I got to take a drink here. I got to wash down some of this puppy chow that Miss Fesser made. Did you know Mrs. Fesser makes really good puppy chow? And that, my friends, is the password to prove that you watched the video. So I want you to email me, put Fesser Puppy Chow in the subject line. What's that? No, Miss Torres, you picked a boring one last time. So, put it in the subject line, Fesser Puppy Chow. That way I'll know you watched this video. Now, let's go on with the story and see what happens next. Well, by God now, said a voice. The boy shut up his eyes to hide inside himself, but it was too late. Someone walking by in the night stood over him. Well, said the voice quietly, Here's a soldier crying, "Before the fight? Good. Get it over. Won't be time once it all starts." And the voice is about to move on when the boy, startled, touched the drum at his elbow. The man above, hearing this, stopped. The boy could feel his eyes, sense him slowly bending near. A hand must have come down out of the night, for there was a little rat-tat as the fingernails brushed and the man's breath fanned his face. "Why, it's the drummer boy, isn't it?" The boy nodded, not knowing if his nod was seen. "Sir, is that you?" he said. "I assume it is." The man's knees cracked as he bent still closer. He smelled as all fathers should smell, of salt, sweat, ginger, tobacco, horse and boot leather, and the earth he walked upon. He had many eyes. No, not eyes, brass buttons that watched the boy. He could only be, and was, the general. "What's your name, boy?" he asked. "Joby," whispered the boy, starting to sit up. "All right, Joby, don't stir." A hand pressed his chest gently, and the boy relaxed. "How long you been with us, Joby?" "3 weeks, sir." "Run off from home or join legitimately, boy?" Silence. "Damn fool question," said the general. "Do you shave yet, boy?" "Even more of a damn fool." "There's your cheek. Fell right off the tree overhead. And the others were not much older. Raw, damn raw, the lot of you. You ready for tomorrow or the next day, Joby?" "I think so, sir." This was the general. This is the big boss, the head of all 40,000 of these soldiers. And in the middle of the night, he runs into the little drummer boy, crying. So what's the drummer boy, do? What do you do? What would you do if all of a sudden you met the general of the whole army? Would you try to be tough? Would you try to be brave? Would you try to put on your best face? Well, he's already caught you crying. I would too. Thanks, Natalia. Appreciate that. I would too. She's been wanting to be mentioned in one of my videos forever. Yeah, she wants to be a star. I would too. Okay. But he's already been crying in front of the general. You want to cry some more? Go on ahead. I did the same last night. You, sir? Now, would you expect the general to be one that would cry? No. But he did. He'll explain why. God's truth. Thinking of everything ahead. Both sides figuring the other side would just give up and soon, and the war done in weeks and us all home. Well, that's not how it's going to be, and maybe that's why I cried. Yes, sir, said Joby. The general must have taken out a cigar now, for the dark was suddenly filled with the Indian smell of tobacco, unlit as yet, but chewed as the man thought what next to say. It's going to be a crazy time, said the general. Counting both sides, there's 100,000 men, give or take, a few thousand out there tonight. Not one as can spit a sparrow off a tree, or nose a horse clod from a minie ball. Stand up, bare the breast, ask to be a target, thank them and sit down. That's us, that's them. We should turn tail and train 4 months. They should do the same. But here we are, taken with spring fever and thinking it bloodlust, taking our sulfur with cannons instead of with molasses as it should be. Going to be a hero, going to live forever. And I can see all of them over there nodding agreement, save the other way around. It's wrong, boy. It's wrong as a head put on hindside front and a man marching backward through life. It will be a double massacre if one of their itchy generals decides to picnic his lads on our grass. More innocents will get shot out of pure Cherokee enthusiasm than ever got shot before. Owl Creek was full of boys splashing around in the noonday sun just a few hours ago. I fear it will be full of boys again, just floating at sundown tomorrow, not caring where the tide takes them. See what he's saying people are going to die. He saw boys just playing in the creek this afternoon, and tomorrow they're going to be floating because they're dead. The general stopped and made a little pile of winter leaves and twigs in the darkness, as if he might at any moment strike fire to them to see his way through the coming days when the sun might not show its face because of what was happening here and just beyond. The boy watched the hand stirring the leaves and opened his lips to say something, but did not say it. The general heard the boy's breath and spoke himself. Why am I telling you this? That's what you want to ask, eh? Well, when you got a bunch of wild horses on a loose range somewhere, somehow you got to bring order. Rein them in. These lads, fresh out of the milk shed, don't know what I know, and I can't tell them. Men actually die in war. So each is his own army. I got to make one army of them, and for that, boy, I need you. Hey, earlier here when it showed the general scooping up leaves, and it said he could have lit them on fire. Have you ever tried to light dry leaves on fire? They burn up just like that, quick as a flash, just like that. Well, the author here is using symbolism, okay? A symbol. In your notes, you want to write, a symbol is a thing that stands for something beyond itself. A symbol is a thing that stands for something beyond itself. A lot of times it's used to create the mood of a story. But just like these leaves could just be burned up in a moment, thousands of people are going to die in a day. Their lives are just going to be burned up. And that's a symbol that the author here is using. These lads, fresh out of the milk shed, don't know what I know, and I can't tell them. Men actually die in war, so each is his own army. I got to make them one army of them, and for that, boy, I need you. Me? The boy's lips barely twitched. Now, boy, said the general quietly, you are the heart of the army. Think of that. You're the heart of the army. Listen now. And lying there, Joby listened. And the general spoke on. If he, Joby, beat slow tomorrow, the heart would beat slow in the men. They would lag by the wayside. They would drowse in the fields on their musket. They would sleep forever after that in those same fields, their hearts slowed by a drummer boy and stopped by enemy lead. But if he beat a sure, steady, ever faster rhythm, then their knees would come up in a long line down over that hill, one knee after the other, like a wave on the ocean shore. Had he seen the ocean ever? Seen the waves rolling in like a well-ordered cavalry charge to the sand? Well, that was it. That's what he wanted. That's what was needed. Joby was his right hand and his left. He gave the orders, but Joby set the pace. That's why they had these drummers. The drummer was to give signals, and the drummer was so that everyone could hear the pounding of that drum, and it would keep them marching. It would keep them marching at a certain pace. The drum was slow, they marched slow. If the drum was fast, they marched fast. And he says people are going to be running for their lives, but they need to keep up the pace. They need to pick up the pace, and we're depending on you as the drummer. So bring the right knee up and the right foot out and the left knee up and the left foot out, one following the other in good time, in brisk time. Move the blood up the body and make the head proud and the spine stiff and the jaw resolute. Focus the steel armor, focus the eye and set the teeth. Flare the nostrils and tighten the hands. Put steel armor all over the men, for blood moving fast in them does indeed make men feel as if they put on steel. He must keep at it, long and steady and long, and then, even though shot or torn, those wounds got in hot blood, and blood he'd helped stir, would feel less pain. If their blood was cold, it would be more than slaughter. It would be murderous nightmare and pain best not told, and no one to guess. The general spoke and stopped, letting his breath slack off. Then after a moment he said, so there you are. That's it. Will you do that, boy? Do you know now you're general of the army when the general's left behind? The boy nodded mutely. You'll run them through then for me, boy. Yes, sir. Good. And God willing, many nights from tonight, many years from now, when you're as old or as far much older than me, when they ask you what you did in this awful time, you will tell them, one part humble and one part proud. I was the drummer boy at the Battle of Owl Creek, or the Tennessee River, or maybe they'll just name it after the church there. I was the drummer boy at Shiloh. Good grief, that has a beat and sound to it fitting for Mr. Longfellow. I was the drummer boy at Shiloh. Who will ever hear those words and not know you, boy? or what you thought this night, or what you'll think tomorrow or the next day when we must get up on our legs and move. The general stood up. Well then, God bless you, boy. Good night. Good night, sir. And tobacco, brass, boot polish, salt, sweat, leather, the man moved away through the grass. Joby lay for a moment, staring but unable to see where the man had gone. He swallowed. He wiped his eyes. He cleared his throat. He settled himself. Then at last, very slowly and firmly, he turned the drum so that it faced up toward the sky. He lay next to it, his arm around it, feeling the tremor, the touch, the muted thunder, as all the rest of the April night in the year 1862, near the Tennessee River, not far from the Owl Creek, very close to the church named Shiloh, the peach blossoms fell on the drum. So that's the story. You're going to answer questions on it. I want to just, at this very end, I want you to just think about some things. Do you think he regretted joining the Army? Or at the end, do you think that what the general said really made him think that what he was doing was important? Second thing I want you to think about is, did you notice what army he fought for? I didn't either. I don't think the story says it. Now, I haven't talked to Ray Bradbury lately, or ever, but I'm thinking he intentionally left it so that you don't know whether he fought for the North or the South, because both of them had these same feelings, they had these same ideas, and they had the same motivation to fight. So both of them were in the same situation. So we're not really meant to know which side this kid fought on. And the third thing that I really wanted you to think about is, do you think this kid survived? It doesn't tell us either. He thinks, the general's convinced him he's going to go home, and when he's old, he's going to be able to say, I was the drummer boy at Shiloh. But I wonder if the drummer boy at Shiloh actually survived. Something to think about. Well, you've got questions to answer, and I'll let you answer those. So make sure you submit those. Make sure that you do all the other stuff that you need to do as well. And I will talk to you later. Hey, make sure that you like this. Make sure you hit subscribe. Enable your notifications so you can see all my wonderful viral videos. Talk to you later.